Hi, and welcome to Draft and Compliance. I'm Kane, he's Tom, and we talked with Joe Evangelisto last time about what happens when a 3PAO loses their authorization status. Today, we're talking about the changes in FedRAMP Revision 5. But before we get to that, we're spinning the beer roulette wheel. Remember, I'm apparently going to hate one of the three remaining local beers that a friend of mine in Bellingham bought for us. So what are we drinking today, Tom?
We are drinking, it's called Raspberry Juice on Juice. It's a double IPA. It's brewed right in your neighborhood at Structures Brewery.
It's just, I drive by them on the way downtown, actually.
Very cool can. It's got some cool artwork.
Like a snake on there.
With it looks like a pineapple to me. So
I don't know. It looks like it's got like some citrus fruit as well. But it's a raspberry. It's a raspberry. It says raspberry juice on juice.
Yes, and the last raspberry we tried was a sour. This is a double IPA, which would be much more up my alley. So I'm going to crack this beer.
All right, well, let's see how this goes. At least it's local, which I like. You know, Tom, we're going to have to get some of your local brews out of they do make beer in Iowa, right?
Oh, they make really good beer in Iowa.
Oh, we're going to have to do that at some point.
I'm enjoying the scent. Ooh, look at that color.
Well, it has a color. We're into this color again.
Very hazy.
What is the thing with pink beer lately, Tom? Is that like just the color of the season?
Well, it's obviously we did another raspberry beer here, so you're going to see some of that color. But the color on the camera, I don't think gives this one quite the justice that it deserves. It's more of
it's kind of brownish.
Dark grapefruit is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's kind of brownish, pinkish, but yeah, I could go with grapefruit color. But again, this is one of those that does not fit in the glass, no matter what I try. Maybe I'll fit the rest in.
What do you smell in there? That's I'm not.
So you said this was an IPA, and I can confirm this smells of an IPA because you and I have had enough IPA before for me to know what they smell like.
It smells delicious, I think, is what you're trying to say.
No, that is not what I'm trying to say, but good try. I don't smell the raspberry at all.
I don't either, which surprises me a little bit.
I mean, there's something sour in there.
Yep, I can smell a little sour. But, it doesn't, there's not a characteristic, like citrusy smell or anything like that you get with normal IPAs. So let's maybe taste it and see what we think.
Sure.
That's unique. So
I've never heard you use that word before, Tom.
No, instead of getting the
unique,
the very burst berry flavor that you got on some of our beers.
You're right. It is like sour. It is like sour grapefruit right there. It just hit me.
I'm getting more of the back end of if you eat a raspberry, there's that front pop of raspberry. That's not this. It's more that subtle back end of the raspberry.
It's a back end of something. We can agree on that point here. It's definitely got that.
I'm actually enjoying it. This has some of the characteristic hoppiness. Although it's not overpowering for a double IPA, it's not going to knock you on your socks with the hop.
So what makes it a double IPA, Tom? What is a double IPA
it's literally
as opposed to a
twice.
Single IPA? Okay, so just double the amount of hops. All right. Well, the head's gone down. I'm going to try one more sip before we really get into it, just to see if it's like that was just an initial thought.
I am actually very much enjoying this.
I mean, it's not. On back of palate, it's terrible. Oh. I mean, on the front of my tongue, it's inoffensive, but on the back of my tongue, it's just like
I don't know why
sour
that gives me so much joy, Kane, but it does. I really enjoyed the front and the back of this. The front has a very unique raspberry flavor, and I want to make sure we say unique because it's not that burst of berry flavor. It's more that subtleness on the back of it, but it's a lot of it there.
You know, Tom, at some point, you and I are going to have to sit down and drink Lefroy or something similar. Now, Lefroy is not my favorite, but if you think this is unique, Lefroy will clear a room.
All right.
It's a Scotch, coincidentally. Cool. It's medicinal. It's good for you, basically, if you survive
That's right.
it. Yeah. Anyway, we were talking about FedRAMP, and having read the FedRAMP Rev5 spreadsheet, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes, it mentions a number of changes in the controls across different FedRAMP baselines, like low, moderate, and high. From your perspective, how significant are these changes?
Yeah, the word significant is maybe not the word I would use. So essentially what FedRAMP did was they introduced a new family of controls. So supplier risk, basically, control set. But then with the remaining controls, they did sort of a shell game, which means they moved some controls and collapsed them under a single control. They moved controls out of one family into another. Parts and parameters that are in FedRAMP also moved around. So it created a very mixed up view of what people had come to trust with Rev4. Rev5 just looks very different because of that. But in terms of significant changes, yeah, there's more specificity with Rev5 than there was over Rev4. But largely, all of the same controls still exist. So if you looked at the count,
so from my perspective, then it's significant because, as you said, they played a shell game, and we'll get to the specific control changes in a moment. But you're saying there's not that many like big changes, just structurally things moved around.
Yeah, I would say if you're looking for big changes, certainly the supply risk family of controls, that's a significant change. Configuration management had a significant change underneath it. You're now required to use a STIG standard for configuration management, where before you could use a CIS benchmark 1 control.
Boy, I remember STIGs. Yikes. That takes me back.
And then there's some additional focus on privacy. Those are probably the biggest significant changes there.
Well, let's get into those in some details, because like from your perspective, what are those key security control differences, like in detail, that other cloud service providers need to be aware of, particularly when transitioning from Rev4 to Rev5?
Yeah, I think folks are going to struggle with the configuration management change. You're talking about a fairly significant step up in terms of diligence and focus with a STIG over a CIS benchmark. So be prepared for that. Be prepared to also sort of build a STIG-light configuration management guide where a STIG doesn't exist. They'll allow you to use CIS benchmark 2, but I think some agencies are going to push for additional changes on top of that. So that's another place where we certainly see a difference with Rev5 is there is more leeway by agency now with Rev5.
Okay. Yeah, something else I was reading in there was to me, it felt like you could tailor your controls a little more. So for our audience then, Tom, could you explain how there's that increased focus on customization in FedRAMP Rev5 and how that affects the role of cloud service providers?
Yeah, great question. Essentially, when they say customization, what they're doing is they're nodding to the fact that there are agencies that have different needs. So you might have an agency that comes to you and says, yeah, I know that's what FedRAMP said, but what we really want to see is this level of granularity in that control. That's the customization that's built into Rev5. The other piece that's important to understand is your ongoing annual requirements with your agency. If you happen to use 2 agencies, meaning you have an authorization with 2, you're going to have to get your annual done with both of them going forward as well.
Oh boy, that sounds like twice as much fun then. For the same price or for double the price?
Probably double the price.
3PAO.
So, certainly, if you can, I would keep your focus to a single agency where possible.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I want to say, if you're enjoying the show, ring the bell and subscribe to get new episodes, or just search for Drafting Compliance in your pocket, in your podcast app, to listen along. Though I honestly can't imagine the show is quite the same without seeing Tom's reactions to beer. Speaking of Tom, could you walk me through the significance of the POA&M management process in the context of transitioning from Rev4 to Rev5?
Yeah, another great question. POA&M is essentially your tool for the transition. So you're expected to do a gap analysis, which anybody who's going to move from one to the other is going to do. I mean, that's sort of 101. but you're going to track those gaps in the POA&M, and you're going to give status monthly in your POA&M as in your continuous monitoring program as to how you're doing on solving those gaps, right? And again, you'll typically have about a year to solve for those gaps.
Yeah, I realize we just introduced a term without defining it first. So POA&M, plans of action and milestones. And on FedRAMP, Tom, POA&Ms you're allowed to keep them open, right? This is not analogous to CMMC where there's been that drive to closure on POA&Ms, right?
Well, there's still a drive to closure. The difference, I think, is there will be some agency back and forth on POA&M items. And so if you get an agency that is particularly partnership oriented, they may have a different kind of conversation on a POA&M item than you might underneath CMMC. But I'd still consider it a bound start and finish sort of exercise where you're not going to be allowed to just keep something open for eternity.
Fantastic. All right. And just thinking also of Rev5, are there any provisions that cloud providers might find difficult to meet in the new Rev5 control requirements?
Well, other than the STIG piece, bless you. Other than the
Thank
STIG
you.
piece, we certainly see the supplier risk family of controls as a significant step up in prescriptiveness. So you have to understand that, and anybody who's in information security right now, Kane, they understand that supply chain risk is a major component of your risk sort of portfolio.
I think it would be remiss if people at this point don't understand
right. Yeah,
that.
I would
I'm pretty
be
sure the
disappointed.
media has been banging on it for about 5 years now, and some of us were like, yeah, that's old news, folks, but keep going.
But before, where you might have been simply checking boxes in terms of your supplier risk program, you're going to have to prove that you're doing that diligence. And so it's going to be a heightened set of controls. And with that comes additional work. And you might, I'm thinking of a large enterprise, you're likely going to have to beef up that team.
All right. So a larger focus on POA&Ms, a larger focus on STIGs, a larger focus on supplier risk management. I think these are all good changes. Something else I was reading, Tom, was how there's something about the transition plan needs to be revised based on leveraged controls by October 3rd, 2023. So that's this year at the start of spooky season. Can you explain what that entails?
Yeah, so there's really two important dates of note. The first has already passed us, September 1. You had to have an initial plan kind of pulled together. And then they essentially gave you another month to account for what they call leverage controls, what you and I might call shared controls. It's those integrated cloud service providers in your environment that also have to make changes. They're essentially giving you that month to read what their plan is.
Okay, so that's just an alignment exercise then really with the
Correct.
Remainder of our supply chains.
You got it. I'm
Okay,
a little
so it's not
surprised that
actually
they
a
only
new
give you a
term.
month.
Oh, that's fair. I guess if everybody's got all their controls and plans and transition plans done by the start of September, they should be willing to share them. And okay, yeah, you're right. That is a bit tight. Well, we'll see how that goes, right? Maybe we'll see a pushback on that one.
Yeah, I think there is some pushback on that, but so far I've seen no bending on the part of the PMO. So I think the dates are the dates.
Fair enough. Well, with that, I've been staring at this. I imagine yours is considerably more empty.
I haven't quite poured all of it in there, but I've refilled. I'm going to do it one more time.
Let me see if I can fill mine in, having got that top eighth of an inch. Oh yes, look, the rest of it goes in there too. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm proud of you, Kane. You've taken more of this than I think a lot of the beers that we've tried. So I think this is really good.
You know, classically, when we get to the end of the show, I usually take a third sniff and a sip to see if the flavor profile has changed, whereas you've been enjoying it throughout.
Yeah.
You know, the raspberry so we've been recording for a little while here. I can now actually smell raspberry. It's very faint, but I can smell it. So whatever was on there at the beginning, at least, has changed. Yeah, it's. And you told me that beers aren't supposed to be aerated. I guess because they've got bubbles in, kind of like Prosecco. But how does it taste? Oh, now it's like drinking flat grape juice or grapefruit juice. Oh.
So
Gee.
I'm dying to hear how you rate this one, Kane.
Well, what I'll say is this. If you like flat, stale grapefruit juice, this would be a great beer to start your morning. Just remember the grapefruit does have some medicinal interactions, so keep that in mind. On a scale of 10 points, I'm not going to give it a 2 because 2 seems to be the low water mark for things that I am absolutely taken aback by, but I am going to give this a very strong 3 out of 10. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, I'm definitely different than you are, Kane. This has a lot of character, so I like that. It has interesting flavor profiles. When it says raspberry, I think most people will think it's going to taste different than it does. When you combine the raspberry with double IPA, you get some hop character to combine with it. So I think that's a very interesting beer. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause on this is I don't have as much of the hop that I would expect with a double IPA. So it's pretty tame in terms of hop. So if there's IPA drinkers out there that like the subtleness of some of the newer IPAs, they'll like this one better. And then you keep mentioning grapefruit. I do get a little bit of grapefruit in this. I don't think it's very strong. So I think of my wife makes me take grapefruit seed extract drops when I have a sore throat. And those are absolutely the worst thing on earth to put in your mouth. So this isn't that at all. This is pretty subtle and it's balanced nicely. So I like it. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Well, okay, so I gave it a 3, you gave it a 7, and Tom, I will challenge you. Try oregano oil if you want to try the absolute worst.
I've tried that as well.
Oh, and you're still saying grapefruit is worse than that.
I've
not tried the grapefruit. Okay, well, I can try that. Maybe not on camera, though. But with that, I think we've hit the end of today's episode. So again, thanks to everyone for watching. Please do like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time with another special guest and another unique beer.